Alrighty, happy Wednesday, 7th graders. This is Mrs. Oliver bringing you today's lovely lesson on percent proportions. So this is working on what we started yesterday, but going a step further. Okay, we're not going to be only looking for our part today. Okay, sometimes we're going to have to find other parts of it instead of the part. Sometimes we got to find the whole number. Sometimes we might even have to find the percent. Okay, so this is using what we started yesterday and just taking it a step farther. All right, so we are in Unit 5. This is our third part of notes for Unit 5 with a foldable. So if you're virtual and you're watching this and you printed it out, you're going to fold it so that you can see percent of the number and the three different type of equations, proportions that you're going to need to use to solve. Okay, and there is a back page to it, so we'll find a spot where you can glue it in with those examples. So let's get started with the notes. Yesterday we talked about this proportion. Remember, your percent is always over 100 and your part is always over the whole. But what you might notice this time around is that we have the word is and of. These are key words to let you know that this part, this number is the part, or this number is of the whole. So that's where those are words that are going to be very helpful when setting up proportions. I'm sorry, my dog just started choking over here. Okay. So the same thing, we're always going to have our 100. Oops, that did not go the way it should have. All right, our 100 is always still going to be right there. That part does not change. Okay, and here it tells us we need to find the percent. 21 is what percent of 35? And normally, what is the key word to tell you that's where your variable is going to go. So I'm going to put a P for my variable. All right, 21 is, that's the key part. So when we see the word is, that's going to make us think of part. So that's where I know my 21 goes there. And then of 35. That gives me the keyword that's my whole. So we're looking for a percent number. And then we're going to need to cross products like we've done before. So I'm going to have to take my 100. This time it's being multiplied with a number. And then my variable is going to go not with 100 this time. Okay, so we have 35p equals 21 times 100. Okay, so we got to multiply that out. 35p equals 2100. Now remember, we have to divide by our 35 so that we cancel it out. And this is where you're going to have to remember, how do we actually divide? Okay. When you're doing this long division wise, you are putting your 2100 in the box. We're going to divide by 35. Well, I know 35 can't go into 221, but it can go into 210 6 times. Okay, and that's because 35 times 6 is exactly 210. Nothing left over, so then I have to put a 0 because 0 times 35 makes 0. That tells me my percent equals 60. Okay, so 21 is 60% of 35, and that's where all that comes into play. Okay, so example 2, right under it, doing the same type of concept. Okay, we're looking for the percent. So we have to make our proportions, and we know 100 is going at the bottom. We are looking for a percent, so that's where my P is going to go. So 28 is what percent of 150? So remember, my is 28, so that goes on top, and my of is 50, that goes on the bottom. You cannot just assume it's going to be the large number on the bottom, because sometimes you're going to have more than 100% that you are looking for your answer. So that's why you have to go with the key words. And then take our cross products. I'm going to take 28 times 100 and 50 times P. So 50P equals 28 times 100, which then makes 2800. 50P equals 2800. Then divide by your 50. Okay, 2800. Extend a little bit more for my division. Now, if you're running out of room to be doing your division, that makes sense. So just try the best you can to fit it in, or at least be paying attention so that you understand how to do this. Number 50 can't go into 2, it can't go in 8, but it can go into 285 times. 5 times 50 is 250. So that's how I know what to do. All right, bring down my 0. So 50 goes into 300 6 times, because 6 times 5 is 30 out of 0. So P equals 56. And then remember to put your percent sign when you're talking about a percent. Okay? All righty. So here we have another one. And then we will get to those after we do our first example. All right, we know 100. Where's 100 always going to go? It always goes right there. All right. This time, though, they did give us our percent. Try to keep my color coding. They gave me my 12%. So that goes above the 100. What is 12% of 175? Remember, of on the bottom. So 175. And this time, we're looking for the part number. Don't know what this number is. That's what we're really looking for. And then do your cross products. Okay. So I have 100N equals 12 times 175. Okay. And 12 times 175 is actually 2100. So these are the easy parts because you're just dividing by 100. So division is super easier with this. Remember, you're either moving your decimal over twice or you're canceling out your zeros. So we know n equals 21. Okay. And that just basically tells me 12% of 175 is 21, which makes sense because 12% is a really small percentage and 21 is a small number compared to 175. Remember, use that estimation. All right. Example 4, doing the same thing. We're going to be looking for our part. And I know that because it says what is. That key word in there. All right, my percent though is 90. And percent is always out of 100 and goes on top of the 100. And then my of is the 130. Okay, do your cross products. 100N equals 90 times 130. Okay, it's going to be a big number. Okay, because 9 times 13 is like 117. So 100N equals 11,700. Remember, you got to divide by 100, which is easy because then it cancels out those zeros. And n equals 117, which is pretty close to 30. And that's good because we were looking for 90%. All right, example 5. We are getting there, folks. 9 is 45% of what number? So in this round, we are looking for the whole, because it says of what? And then we just have to fill in the other part. What percentage did they give us? 45. And my is the 9. Okay, so if you don't know exactly what you're supposed to be putting where, look for those key words. Those keywords are always going to tell you. And then look where the what is. That's the best advice I can give you, folks. All right. Alrighty, so we have to take 45 times n. So that's where my 45n comes from. Then 100 times 9. Well, 100 times 9 is easy because that just makes it 900. And then, of course, we divide by 45. Now remember, when you're dividing, the top number goes in your division box. And then you divide by 45. Okay, can 45 go in 90? Yes, it can. Twice. And then you have zeros left over, which is 0. So that means n equals 20. Okay, so that means 9 is 45% of 20. Which means that makes sense because 9 is almost half of 20. And we were almost looking for 50%. Remember, those estimations will help you out. All right, so we have 100 on the bottom. We're looking for what and of. Of is always on the bottom right. So that's where my variable goes. 70% goes on top. Oops, I saw 9 and I started putting 9. My bad. 70. And then 91 on top. Cross products. Okay, 70n equals, and then 100 times 91 is just 9100. This is one-step equation. The opposite of multiplication, division. The whole point of equations is to cancel it out so that the variable is by itself. That's why we use our inverse operations. If you remember that from such long times ago. All right, so 70 goes into 91 one time. And that gives me 1. Okay, then if I was to multiply 70 times 3, I would get this exact same number. Then we have zeros left over. So n equals 130. Okay, so that's where you just need to make sure, hey, does it make sense? Okay, so look at your original proportion and make sure that your answer makes sense. All right, let's go to the extra practice that's on the next page. Okay, so guided practice. We're going to create a proportion for each of these. Okay, if you want to, I highly suggest pausing the video right now and try these on your own and see if you're getting it. Okay, so pause and try. For those that tend to like to look at these and or be listening to something else instead of doing the work yourself. All right, so now you should have done all of these on your own. Okay, so these are the answers I got for each one. N is 8 7/10. That's 15% of my 58. Okay, so make sure you remember how to put together your whole section there. Okay, then I got 90% for the next one. 15 is the whole number if 12 is 80% of the number. What percent? This is the tricky one here. Okay, so I did make sure, double checked myself, did I put in the right order? My number on top is a lot bigger than the number on the bottom. So that gave me a huge percentage. Okay, if I paid 25 bucks for a power cord and I wanted to sell it and I sold it to you for $102, I made a huge 408% profit off of that. Okay. The next one, you got a repeating decimal when you took your 4,000 and divided by 15. So that is what would go for N. It didn't tell me to round anywhere specifically, so I just put the repeating decimal. Okay, what is 33% of 75? So I'm looking for my part, and I got 24 7/75. Okay, all right. Next is there's guided practice on 125. If you're feeling like you really need that extra practice, I highly suggest looking and trying to do those on your own as well. Okay, so if you need to, pause this and come back. Okay, so I may set up my proportions to get my answers. So at 10%, 7/10, 68 and 5/10. Okay, and then I showed how I set up my proportions. Then the next one, if this one has 10 cups of cereal, but this is 30% more, how many more cups does it have? Well, I got 3 cups because you would set up your proportion. It didn't ask how many total cups. So if you put 13, I can see that's where you might think that, but it only asked how many more. Okay, but if you put 13 cups, you were on the right track, just not the exact answer. And how can you use the percent proportion to solve the real world problems? Think about what represents the part, the whole, and a percent in the problem, then place each in the percent. So if you're talking about original price of a clothing, that would be your whole. The part's what you're actually paying, and the percent is the discount price you're paying. So if it's like 30% off, you're only paying 70%. So those are some real world problems that you would have to deal with and how to put them into their situation. So let's talk homework. Okay, you are doing page 125, problems 1 through 12. Remember, you are always setting it up as your percent over 100, and it is over the of. This is my part, and this is my whole. Okay, those are just giving you the extra so that you understand why we use is and of. They're just the key words for what's the part and what's the whole. But part and whole is the important part. Okay, so this tells me what percent of 60 is 15. So I know I'm looking for my percent over 100. The small 15 is going over my 60 this time. Remember, it's not always the smallest number on top. Then do your cross products of 60p equals, and then 15 times 100 is 1500. Okay, divide it by 60, and we get p equals 25, so my answer is 25%. Remember, whenever you're looking for a percent, give the percent symbol there too. Okay, so now this one is asking what number is. So that means I'm missing that number. I have 15% over 100, and my whole is 60. Okay, 60 times my 15 is 900. So 100n equals 900. Divide by your 100. The zeros cancel. N equals 9. So the answer is 9. All right. So that is your homework for today. Now I also have on here our reviewing of homework from Monday. Okay, so if you need to make sure that you got all your answers. The first two sections were easy because you were just moving decimal points. It's these last two sections that students have been messing up. Okay, so like this one here. Okay, you're technically going from a fraction to a decimal to a percent. Okay, I had a lot of kids only going from fraction to decimal. So make sure you took that extra part and putting it in there. All right, the next section here, make sure you reduce to lowest terms. I had a lot of students get 10 25ths. Well, that can be reduced one more time. All right, so make sure you got that. And then last night's homework, here are the answers to check to make sure that you got the correct answers. Now I know this one sets around to the nearest tenth, but whenever you deal with money, you round and then add your 0 at the end. All right. Have a great day. If you have any questions, please reach out to your teacher.